Tomorrow afternoon, the Rady JCC in Winnipeg transforms into New York's Brill Building when music director Phil Corrin takes the stage in the latest Music N Mavens daytime concert. To learn more about the musical landmark and what's planned for Thursday afternoon, Phil has joined me in studio this morning. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Simon.
Well, let's get right down to it. First things first, the Brill Building. What can you tell us about it, Phil?
Well, it was built in 1930. Actually, they announced it at the beginning of October 1929. The developer decided, or he announced he was going to build the world's tallest building right in the heart of Manhattan. And then the stock market crash happened. And so it still got built. It's 11 stories, 75,000 square feet. And right after it was built, music publishers started moving in there. And by 1962, they had, I believe it was 165 different music companies out of that building.
It's just really incredible when you think about it. The number of individuals that were working there, the companies that were based out of the Brill Building, 1619 Broadway at 49th. That's just north of Times Square and just uptown from the famous Tin Pan Alley, the legendary strip of music publishers and songwriters that dominated music in the late 19th, early 20th centuries. The Brill Building, like you were saying, it was almost like a one-stop shop.
It was. There was, on the second floor, there was a jazz club where all the greats in the 1940s played. Duke Ellington, Cab Calloway, Artie Shaw, Ella Fitzgerald. And then the rest of the building it started off as music publishers, but then there were recording studios and talent agencies. So they could write songs, send them to another floor to have a group of singers demo them, send that demo to a recording company or a record company who would decide this song was perfect for the Ronettes or the Chiffons or the Shondells, and then they would get the record out there and make some money and get on the charts.
Yeah, it really is incredible. It's called the center of the music industry back in the 50s and 60s especially. Can you tell us about some of the legendary performers who worked there?
Well, actually, in the late 50s through into the 1960s, they developed what they call the Brill Building sound. Performers like Carole King, Neil Sedaka, Paul Simon had offices there. Phil Spector, who's, of course, not a name that you want to bring up too much anymore because he did not end well. But they really developed this pop sound that was aimed at the teenage audience in the late 1950s throughout the 1960s. Then in the 70s, they got into the singer-songwriter era with Paul Simon, Billy Joel, and they had just anybody who was anybody in American pop music was associated with the Brill Building.
Yeah, you've tossed off some pretty well-known names. Let me add a few more. Burt Bacharach, Liza Minnelli, Dionne Warwick, Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons, Ike and Tina Turner. The list just goes on and on and on and on. Now, before we get chatting about the program, because I'm sure audiences are going to hear some familiar tunes, I want to chat a little bit more about yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about your musical background? I know you were a longtime music educator, right?
Yeah, I taught high school band for 25 years in the Seven Oaks School Division. I retired from that about 10 years ago. And since then, I've been working mostly in theater. I just finished a gig at the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre. I was assistant music director for Into the Woods. And actually, our two singers for the program were part of the cast for Into the Woods. They were Melanie White, played the Cinderella's stepmother. And Matthew Fletcher he had the hardest job in theater. He was an understudy for the show, which meant he had to learn 5 different roles and be ready to go on any time. I don't know how he does it, but he was amazing.
Can you tell us more about your relationship with Melanie White and Matthew Fletcher? This is the first time you're going to be working with Matthew, right? Apart from a short stint a few years back?
Yeah, I worked with him on a show just as a technician about 10 years ago. But this is the first time I've really worked with him as a singer and musician. He's a wonderful, wonderful singer and great actor. And Melanie, I've known for quite a few years. I've actually studied voice myself with her. She's one of Winnipeg's premier voice teachers and a wonderful singer herself. And she was a little reluctant at the beginning to do this concert because pop music she's more of a theater singer. But she really has taken to the music well, and she's really having a lot of fun with it.
So one more thing before we get to the actual music itself. I'm curious. You were a longtime music educator, and you've kind of transitioned into this role working as a vocal coach, an accompanist, a music director. What do you enjoy about this aspect of music making?
Well, I've always been interested in theater.
Yeah.
Part of my job at Garden City teaching band was also doing the annual school musical, which I just love doing. I think it's the storytelling aspect of things. When you're doing music itself, it's wonderful, but you combine that with storytelling and characters, and there's something really special about it. Whether you're working with kids or working with professionals, it's just a great time.
Yeah, great time indeed. Speaking of great times, lots of great tunes to choose from for your time tomorrow, 2 p.m. at the Rady JCC. What are audiences going to hear tomorrow on the program?
Well, you will hear everything from some Frank Sinatra jazz to Ellie Greenwich and Neil Sedaka in the 60s, right up through some Paul Simon and Billy Joel and Carole King right into the early to mid 70s. So anything you like in pop music, we're going to cover it all.
So, okay, let me ask you this then. You're kind of running the gamut when it comes to the pop charts. How did you go about picking the music? Are these your faves? Did you discover any new gems?
Well, they're mostly my favorites.
That's a great way to program a show. It's a great way to program the show.
I have to admit that. Mind you, but I did get together with Melody and Matthew, and we picked some of their tunes. Matthew is doing a Joni Mitchell tune, which was not one that I'm told is very famous, but it was not a tune that I knew. So I'm pleased that these two singers were able to introduce a few of their favorites to me because I didn't know them beforehand.
Now, I have to ask, as someone who just took in a Music and Mavens show last week, it's such an intimate space. It's such a wonderful space. Are you expecting to hear the audience hum along every now and again?
We're actually going to invite them to, I think.
Amazing. Kate, that was my next question. Are you encouraging it? Wonderful news.
These tunes, especially the ones from the 1960s, doo-wah, diddy, diddy, dum, diddy. I mean, everybody knows these songs, so they're going to be welcome to just hum along and bop along right with them.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be an absolutely marvelous show. Phil, thanks for taking the time to come by the studio this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Music and Mavens, Songs from the Brill Building takes place at the Rady JCC tomorrow, 2 p.m. We're going to end this conversation with a little bit of Carole King from her days in the Brill Building, originally sung by the Shirelles. We're going to hear the version released later by King on her second studio album, Tapestry. This is Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow?